Thank you very much, Rolando. I'm Marion Adenek. I'm the Director of Programs of the Wildfires and here in Conservation X Labs. Buenos días a todos, everyone. Este panel va a ser en inglés y en español. Entonces voy a dejarlos con eso. Vamos a
and I'm so happy to be here with all of you. And I'm so excited to begin these 2 days with this panel because I think it will really set the tone for what we're trying to achieve here. We're all here because of a problem or a set of problems, as we heard from Rodrigo, in the Amazon, and because we believe that we have the capacity to solve those problems. And I think we're going to hear a lot over the next 2 days about solutions to problems, and beyond solutions to problems, new pathways forward that can shape the future for the Amazon and, by extension, for a livable world. And the 4 people that I have on this panel are really all pioneers in moving this kind of vision forward, not only to solve problems, but also to create new solutions. So I want to start by introducing them. And then I'll jump into the questions. So I'll start with, we have here Jorge Barragan. He's the Executive Vice President of Programs at the International Youth Foundation in Mexico, and he's spent his career focused on creating potential for youth employment and labor solutions. We have Janice Maciel, Green Economy Center Manager for the Fundación CERTI, which is the Center of Reference for Innovative Technologies. They've recently launched an ambitious program to jumpstart new sustainable businesses in the Brazilian Amazon called the Jornada Amazônia. And Fundação CERTI has really been at the forefront of creating ecosystems for innovation in Brazil for many years. I'd also like to welcome Patricia Pinho. She's the Deputy Science Director for IPAM, which is the Amazon Environmental Research Institute. And she is an expert in socio-ecological security and equity and leading Brazil's communication efforts to the IPCC around these topics. And finally, Benito Juarez, the founder and president of Fab Labs Peru and the director of the Floating Fab Labs, who's also been at the forefront for many years of bringing together local culture and knowledge with innovative and disruptive technologies for changing development trajectories in the Amazon. So as you can see, I have an incredible group of panelists here with me this morning. I'm going to start with a general question for each of you and then move on to individual questions that really touch on some of your expertise. So my first question, we've already heard a lot about problems and also the untapped potential that we have in the Amazon. There's an enormous set of cultural and biological resources that we are not utilizing. And we saw in Rodrigo's presentation that the devastating images of really an ecological wasteland being left in place of those riches. So I'd like to ask each of you to start by talking a little bit about what you see as the greatest opportunities that we have going forward to change development with innovation to tap into that potential. And what are the key factors that need to be in place to realize those opportunities? So why don't I start with you, Benno?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, friends. I will switch to Spanish. Well,
a few days ago, I visited in Satipo, in the Central Forest where I grew up, and talking with my parents, they told me that they were going to cut some trees that my grandparents planted like 40 years ago. And I asked, so what are you going to do with them? We're going to sell them more or less at $100 each tree. And I was very sad thinking that how is it that currently they don't have an option that allowed them to have better and greater incomes preserving the tree and not cutting it. And just like my family and many other families are facing this necessity to degrade the forest, not because they hate the forest, but that's the way they learn to give protection, care, and love to their families. My education was financed cutting many trees. The challenge we have right now, it's really different. I think that the Amazon has an extraordinary answer to these predatory models. I think in the Amazon, in the core, in the lung of the world, we can incubate the manufacturing of the world, and in fact, factory that would challenge us to go beyond the linear model that we all know, even beyond the circular model of reutilizing the resources we have, and to think maybe on a model, on a spiral model. In other words, just like now it increases in a global level, the digital information, why not also to think that this model of increasing the digital information could be a parallel of the increasing of the biological information that we right now lose. This information grows in a different curve with extinction of species. How can we do so this information grows? How can we change from a predatory economy to a regeneratory one? I think that the Amazon, it's a great challenge to this question, but it's also the great answer. And in that sense, thinking also in the knowledge of our ancestors. I remember, for example, the case of Moray as an tangible evidence. Moray, it's these circular Andens that are found in Cusco. It's an structure that brings us a clear view of how can we go to that way. Just to close this idea of the impact, in the case of Moray, the Incas, for example, cultivated in a vertical way to see in which way a species that grows in a rooftop could adapt to other one, and each roof could represent a different ecological stage. In 100 meters of depth are concentrated of 1,000 of biological steps, and the Amazon is the great moray of the world. We have a representation, an extraordinary biodiversity representation that can give us the opportunity to generate knowledge and could be extrapolated not only to other places in the world, but also out of this world.
Gracias, Beno.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Patricia?
Can you hear me?
Sí.
So now we switch to English, and it's a great pleasure to be here. And as Marion mentioned, I was lead author for the IPCC on the latest report, which is said to be the Atlas of Human Suffering on Earth. So giving the state of the planet, when we think about impact, vulnerability, and adaptation. When we place this in the context of the Amazon, we have two phenomena that are driving these asymmetries that was already mentioned. So climate change is already impacting the Amazon region, is already impacting the forest, the ecosystem, and the people and their life and livelihoods. But we also have the negative asymmetries of development patterns affecting the Amazon, as we already saw. So those people are the ones that least responsible for forest degradation, for the forest loss, and least benefiting from this both crises in terms of economic and no economic development, if you will. So in that context, we believe, and there is high confidence. We are not making up this. There is high confidence on the scientific evidence that we are pushing these communities to a level of point of no return, not only the ecological no return of the Amazon forest going to savanization type of forest, but we also are observing social tipping points. What that means that we are increasing conflict, violence, and migration, giving these two events combined together. So mining is at the heart, is the heart of this process. So we have like what is showing these pictures by Alex, that is not a level of like artisanal mining is like kilometers and kilometers of forest being degraded. Kids are being poisoned by and affected by the products of those. So in this context, we have decided to what kind of economy we needed to develop in the Amazon. What kind of development program should be addressed there? So we recently published a paper on ecological economics that most of people haven't really heard about, but we are talking about a bioeconomy approach in the Amazon. What a bioeconomy is really like promising to deliver a sustainable, a fair, equitable future and a climate resilient future for the Amazon region. And that, I think, is a huge opportunity. What is this bioeconomy means is that we needed to place and attach economic value of a standing forest, not degrading the forest. And for the mining specific, we needed to find ways that those process be more monitored, articulated, organized, and we needed to commit to 4 pillars. So we need to commit to zero deforestation in any of the economic activities we develop in the Amazon. That is already a huge promise. It's like a challenge, but it can deliver many, many ecosystem service across the globe, not only benefiting the local communities, but also the global community, if you will. But we also needed to address the issue of a diversified economy. Like, we cannot have commodities or monocultures or only mining in the region. We needed to be diversified. We needed to include the knowledge that those people have. They're not only in the process of harvest, the economic benefits, but also addressing the process in a more equitable manner. Yeah, so I think that's it, a little bit. Thank you, Maria.
That's great. Thank you, Patricia. You'll have a chance to expand on that too. So I think that's a great moment to pass to Janice, who's really working on this green economy issue in Brazil.
Thank you, Marianne. Well, to conserve the forest, we need to generate competitiveness for it compared to another use of land. And currently, with a few exceptions, this is not happening. In the Amazon biome itself, the bioeconomy represents an insignificant of the region GPD in an area with the greatest diversity of species in the planet. So I would like to bring a little bit of this perspective of the power of the bioeconomy and how can this change what we are facing, yeah? So to change the reality, we need to develop this market. We need to be able to increase the industry demand on these sustainable bioeconomy chains. And they are willing to do so, but they are facing a big lack of organization in the production chains. So there is a weak connection between what happens in the base of the chain and what happens in the industry. Most of it is due to a difference in the characteristics of the industry, where they demand volume, they demand quality standards, and they demand reliable supply stability. In contrast, there is a characteristic of the supplier, the forest. The extractivism, they work with small quantities, they work with heterogeneous standards, and they are subject to natural variation in productions. So overcoming these abscesses, qualify and stabilize the bioeconomy value chains, it's among the main challenges that can be overcome by innovation. And between these two extremes, there is a large space for which innovative startup can act, either by diversified demands, reduce independence, overcoming challenge of scales and logistics, and then promoting the competitiveness that we need for this conserved forest. And to this happen, we need some change in the mindset. We need to create an entrepreneurial culture in the region, yes. As the economist Schumpeter said many years ago, the entrepreneur is the vehicle of innovation. So we need to promote this entrepreneurial, this innovator culture with a purpose of impact associated with the forest and the bioeconomy. And also associated with that, we need to face another challenge, that is the prototype knowledge. Normally, most of the Brazilian university academic culture, especially in those areas of knowledge close to the bioeconomy, they're still more dedicated to basic research. So, and less applied and less research applied in process and new products. So there's a lot of good knowledge being created inside the Amazon universities, but the necessary path to become a production or solution to the market, it's far from the university. So there is, that makes the entrepreneurship a distant reality from the university, from who is inside the university, yeah? So we need to create this entrepreneurial culture, and we need to focus on the origination of many new business, either business that provides technological solutions for, in a form of new products, new model of business, new process, but also startups and new business that increase the demands of the bioeconomy. With that, we then have a hope to see some change in this bioeconomy sector.
Buenos días a todos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to Alex and Paul and their team for the invitation. Voy a cambiar a inglés para poder responder la pregunta. Soy un trabajador, un especialista de marketing. Entonces, cuando pienso en transformar una región, pienso en cómo transformar los mercados laborales en las industrias de los que ellos dependen. La industria más grande en la Amazonía son las extractivas, incluyendo minería, agricultura, pueden y tienen impactos adversos en el medio ambiente. Entonces, la pregunta que me hago a mí mismo es, ¿cómo es que las industrias evolucionan para beneficiar a las personas y a su medio ambiente? Para responder la primera parte de la pregunta, veamos cómo las industrias evolucionan. Entonces, los economistas tienden a pensar en productos como ser más o menos complejos, con mucho de los productos producidos en la Amazonía como ser.
Less complex. Each product in each country leads to a particular pathway towards increased complexity based on economic structure, comparative advantage, and trade regimes. For example, in Colombia, there's a pathway from bananas to high-value agricultural products like Jerusalem artichokes and coffee, and from cattle ranching to dairy products. If we look at metal products towards which mining interests could diversify, including rare earth minerals, industrial and consumer products, we see a potential transformation of the local economy towards increased industrialization, which doesn't appear to be in line with the conservation of the Amazon. However, this process of industrial transformation doesn't happen in a vacuum. Rodrigo Otero just made a brilliant point to demonstrate such complexity. Countries and regions steer the evolution of their industry through industrial policies. Towards this renewed economy, Alex and Paul envisioned when they launched Conservation X Labs. So to touch upon the key factors of the second part of your question, I would say that there must be in place to evolve in this industry in the Amazon two key factors: industrial policies and workforce development systems. And I'd like to share an example of how industrial policy has transformed the cut flower industry in the region. The cut flower industry began in Peru, Brazil, Ecuador, and Colombia in the 1960s. This flower industry grew out of coconut, palm flower, and banana agriculture, which were all very labor-intensive crops, which is exactly what is needed for flower cultivation. In Ecuador, with investment in new skills and machinery, they were able to transform the industry to meet consumer demand for more diverse flowers. Arrangements and related products on an industrial scale with specialized equipment and dependent upon cold chain to facilitate exports. Colombia capitalized on industrial infrastructure, workforce, and trade relationship to diversify into hybrid flower and seed engineering. The advanced skills required for this complex industry transformed the structure of the workforce to include more skilled workers that are paid better salaries than the original palm flower farmers. So the evolution of the cut flower industry has been facilitated by industrial policy where governments facilitate access to markets with trade agreements, land through formal titles and loans, finance also with loans, FDI, currency hedging, infrastructure with government building irrigation and road system, cold chains and ports, technology with public investment in greenhouses, R&D, biotech, and qualified workers with government investment in training. Efforts to promote industry that conserves the Amazon that aren't supported by or against current industrial policy will flounder and are swimming against the current. It is important for those who would conserve the Amazon to influence the current industrial policies to determine what industry get access to market, land, finance, infrastructure, qualified workers, and securing the evidence to support such changes in line with USAID current initiatives, as Elizabeth Bosman shared this morning. This final point, the workforce, is critical not only for the sustained growth of industry, but also to ensure that there is broad-based public support for industrial growth. If people, particularly young people, see an inspiring future in an industry, they will support public investment in that particular industry. To the contrary, will seek to block its growth despite environmental benefits. An example of this is the local protest against wind farms in my own country, Mexico, where firms import their workers from Spain to run wind farms. Thank you.
Thank you, Jorge. So I think one thing all of you have touched on and that we've also heard in earlier talks is really the need for diversity of both knowledge, approaches, and the use of the natural resources of the Amazon. So I'm going to ask you each another question, and I'd like you to try to keep your answers to about a minute because we're a little short on time this morning. So for you, Benno, I'd like to ask you, how do we really incorporate the diversity of knowledge of local cultures and combine that with technological innovation to create new opportunities and also a new vision of what's possible for the Amazon?
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Bueno, la incorporación de innovación en la Amazonía, en nuestro caso, primero parte de medir el nivel de madurez industrial. ¿Qué significa esto? Muchas de las iniciativas que se están haciendo en la Amazonía, si bien son un gran esfuerzo, todavía están bajo el paradigma de industria 1 o 2.0. Por ejemplo, el cacao. Hace unos 10 años se vendía todavía el cacao en baba, en semilla, en pepa, y ahora hay un gran esfuerzo
And there's a great effort to turn cacao into chocolate. However, we still have a gap of 80 years with this kind of technology. How do we take the leap on an industry of 3 or 4.0? We are developing projects for personalized happiness. For your, in base of your stress level, you can print the chocolate at your measurement. So this kind of tool allows local communities companies to improve their production and to insert in a different paradigm on the industrial level. But it's also important to think on how to strengthen the local capabilities. In that sense, the development of floating labs so they can navigate in the Amazon is another initiative to incubate with really advanced labs, not projects of sustenance, not to take the bare minimum, but to give the more advanced in science, technology, to take these leaps of gaps. Muchas gracias. Voy a cambiar el orden un poco. Entonces, Jorge, en cuanto a esta pregunta, iba a preguntarte sobre cambios sistémicos, pero creo que ya hablaste sobre eso. Lo que me gustaría preguntarte es, ¿cómo ves al mundo de la juventud, particularmente en estos esfuerzos para transformar el desarrollo a través de la innovación? Gracias por la pregunta. Creo que la respuesta es lo que ya se estaba hablando sobre el futuro de la Amazonía, porque el futuro está atado a los jóvenes. Entonces, la juventud de hoy es parte de una de las generaciones más grandes que la región va a ver. Jamás sus inspiraciones y elecciones va a formar el futuro, no solo para la Amazonía, pero también para la región entera. Las buenas noticias es que los jóvenes, inspirados por líderes y agentes de cambio como Liz Yuka, que por ejemplo están o quieren trabajar para combatir el cambio climático y la conservación. Y entonces debemos proveerles caminos para el futuro que los inspire. Un ejemplo de esto viene sobre el trabajo que hemos ayudando, Coco, a Verde aquí en Perú. Hace años esta cooperativa quería asegurarse de que la transición generacional no debilitaría la cooperativa. Invirtiendo en liderazgo joven y también sus capacidades técnicas, fuimos capaces de incrementar la participación de los jóvenes en la toma de decisiones cooperativas en un 60%.
Is this working? Yeah. Patricia, I'd like to go back to you and ask you, as we're looking at a diversified economy with participation of many different sectors and actors, how do we ensure that benefits are equitably shared with communities? The part of the problem with the model we have now is that it funnels resources out of the region. So how do we resolve that in a new vision for the economy?
This is the $1 million question. I will try, from my perspective, what has worked is when you truthfully engage the community since the beginning of the process, but also helping them to understand this cross-scale dynamics that is like understanding who are really benefiting from this process and making sure that they understand what is at stake. What I see is that most of the time people are not aware of what's going on beyond that board, where the resources are going and how much resources are going. So one example is that people don't see other alternatives, other development and economic alternatives, except from gold mining, from logging, from fisheries. And then now we have like the illegality dominating the Amazon, which is going to be a challenge. So I believe that we needed to ensure their participation in the equitable sharing, but helping them to envision a future where they are part. When you're like striving or like every day to survive, it's harder to imagine a future. It's harder to imagine that you can have a sustainable, fair, and peaceable future in the Amazon. So that's, I think, our idea on this.
I love that answer. Thank you. And now just going back to Janice, this is the $1 million question also. There's a few of them actually, but one of them. When we think about this vision that Patricia talked about, we're always focused on that question of scaling. How do we take these seeds of inspiration and scale them up in the time scale that we have, which is so limited, to really transform the trajectory that Rodrigo so eloquently illustrated for us a few minutes ago.
Thank you, Marianne. So our mission is about trying to help to solve these million questions and understand that this is a problem that many different actors needs to play. And what we are trying to do is to stimulate a dynamic ecosystem of innovation and scalable business in the Amazon bioeconomy. And to fulfill these missions, we are creating the largest platform for business innovations in the Brazilian Amazon bioeconomy, based on the CERTI Foundation experience with another innovation ecosystems, and the partnership of great national and international partners that are together along with us in this. And our vision is that we cannot focus on specific moments or on specific aspects of the entrepreneurship journey. We need to watch the whole spectrum of the ecosystem. And for that, we are investing a lot in the creation of the culture of entrepreneurship. We are promoting creation at scale of at least 200 new startups for the next 3 years. We are helping to promote the competitiveness of the existing startups and investing with smart and corporate money in at least a third of them. And also something that we understand that it's crucial, it's to attract the industry to create new models of partnership together with the startups. So this is one way to track this challenge, that we understand that it's not easy, that we need a lot of people and organizations acting together to face the problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just want to close. I'd like to ask each of you to just give one sentence about what really gives you hope for the future from where we sit today. And I'll start on this end with Jorge, and we'll go this way.
Again, I think that young people are in the heart of the potential solutions for the Amazon. So the more we can work to put them in the center of the conversation, hear about their ideas, involvement in design, and also be part of the solutions, we can anticipate a better future for the Amazon. Thank you.
Just very briefly, fortunately, I believe that we are in a convergence of moments that give us hope for a better future, starting from behavioral trends, but also some global agendas as ESG, SDG, but mostly the climate agenda. And this can place the Amazon and all the Pan-Amazon countries as a protagonist on this climate change challenge agenda.
On that, I pick it up on the importance of, we have important leaders like now Lula being elected and then really being able to rejoin the climate agreement, rejoin the promise or the alternative for curbing deforestation and forest degradation in the Amazon, give us hope that we have at least this coming years, to face huge challenges in our shared humanity. And then I would like to say that we are all under the same storm, but in different boats. And if we can realize that, I think we can respond to the Amazon in a less homogeneous way in articulating the different people and ecosystem that exist in the region.
Lo que me trae esperanza son los jaguares de la Amazonía.
Jaguars of the Amazon.
Para la Amazonía,
For
o para
the
los
Amazon or
amazónicos,
for
el jaguar es el
the
símbolo
inhabitants, the
del
jaguar is the
espíritu que
symbol of the
renueva y que
spirits that
protege la
renews and
selva.
protects the
Y así
forest.
como ahora
And
vemos
just
de
like we
forma muy
see now
dura
in a very
la
harsh way
naturaleza se
that
extingue,
nature is being
también se
extinguished,
extinguen los sueños de los
the
jóvenes, de
dreams
los
of
niños que
young
no
people
quieren
are also
seguir
being
en la selva
extinguished,
porque
that
no
they
encuentran
don't want to
oportunidades.
keep living in the
Sin
forest
embargo,
because
el
they don't
esfuerzo de
find any
ustedes, de
opportunities. However,
organizaciones que
your
representan y
efforts of your
otras
organizations
realizan para que estos
and
jaguares,
so
los
other
sueños
organizations do for
amazónicos
these
no se
jaguars and
extingan,
their
es
Amazon
lo que me
dreams
llena de esperanza.
not to be extinguished is what
Thank
fills me
you.
with hope.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll conclude with that, and we're going to hear a lot more reasons for hope in the next 2 days. Thank you.